I never thought I'd find the courage to escape, but there I was, sneaking through the dark hallway of my parents' house, driven by years of torment. My name is Rachel, and for 20 years my life has been nothing short of a nightmare. As I slipped out into the cold night, a glimmer of hope sparked in my heart, a hope that was suddenly tested when I encountered a homeless man named Tyler, whose desperation mirrored my own. What began as an act of kindness quickly turned into an unbreakable bond as we faced life's darkest moments together. Despite the odds, we found a way to lift each other, leading to a new beginning filled with love and purpose. Our journey wasn't easy, but it taught us that even in the most hopeless situations, there is always a chance for a brighter tomorrow. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. As I approached the kitchen, a sharp, gnawing pain twisted in my stomach, a relentless reminder of the hunger that had become my constant companion. Desperation drove me to the fridge, where I retrieved the bowl of oatmeal I had meticulously hidden away, a small treasure meant for this very moment of escape. My parents, in their cruel control, hoarded all the decent food, locking it away beyond my reach, leaving me to scavenge for scraps. I knew I had to be cunning. This meager meal would have to sustain me until I could put miles between myself and this hellish place. With trembling hands, I tucked the bowl into my bag, each step toward the front door fraught with fear and determination. As I slowly turned the key in the lock, my heart pounded in my chest, each beat louder than the last. The sound of a creak from my parents' bedroom made my blood run cold. My father's voice, rough and menacing, cut through the silence, calling my name. A surge of terror coursed through me. He often spoke in his sleep, and I clung desperately to the hope that this was one of those times. I stood there, paralyzed, my breath caught in my throat, knowing that if he found me trying to flee, the punishment would be brutal, far worse than anything I had endured before. Time seemed to stretch endlessly, each second a torturous eternity, until finally I mustered the courage to push open the door and slip out into the night. The cold night air slapped against my face, a chilling reminder of the unknown that lay ahead. Yet for a fleeting moment, a spark of hope ignited within me. At 20 years old, I had been denied even the most basic rights, never allowed to study, learn, to grow. All I craved was the chance to work, to earn just enough to ensure I would never have to feel this gnawing hunger again. But as my feet touched the pavement, my escape plan crumbled before my eyes. There, in the shadowy embrace of a nearby alley, a man slumped against the unforgiving brick wall, his frail body barely covered by tattered clothes. His eyes, sunken and hollow, met mine, and I saw in them a reflection of the despair that had consumed my own life. He looked even worse off than I did, his matted hair framing a face that, despite the grime and weariness, still bore traces of a long-lost beauty. The surprise in his eyes as he realized I was acknowledging him tugged at my heartstrings, breaking through the walls of self-preservation I had built. How many people had passed him by, pretending not to see the human suffering right in front of them? I hesitated, torn between my own desperate need for survival and the undeniable compassion that surged within me. At that moment, my carefully constructed plans began to unravel. As terrible as life was in my parents' home, at least I had something to eat every day. This man, I realized, might not have had a meal in days, maybe even longer. Before I could think better of it, I found myself walking toward him, my grip tightening around the bowl of oatmeal I had meant to keep for myself. My heart ached with the weight of this decision, but somehow I knew I couldn't just walk away. I couldn't ignore his suffering, not when it was so painfully similar to my own. "I don't know your name," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper, "but it's clear you need this more than I do." With trembling hands, I extended the bowl toward him, the dim streetlight casting a soft glow on his gaunt face, illuminating the deep gratitude that flickered in his eyes. "Tyler," he replied, his voice shaky as he reached out to accept the bowl. "My name is Tyler, And you must be Rachel." A sudden jolt of fear surged through me, tightening my chest. "How do you know my name?" I asked, my voice edged with suspicion, unable to mask the unease that gripped me. Tyler's gaze lingered on me for a moment before he spoke again. "I overheard someone mentioning your name earlier when I was passing by," he explained, his eyes dropping to the bowl cradled in his hands. He paused as if searching for the right words. "But why are you doing this for me?" His voice, though hoarse and weary, carried the weight of a lifetime of mistrust born from a world that had shown him little kindness. I scanned the darkened street, ensuring the night still offered us the protection of its shadows. "Because I know what it's like to be hungry," I confessed, my voice barely audible, the words feeling both like a release and a burden. "I can't just walk away and leave you here, not when I know you need help." Tyler regarded me with a newfound curiosity, a faint smile ghosting across his lips. In that instant, standing there with a stranger whose life mirrored the despair I had long felt, a connection sparked a connection unlike anything I had ever known. For the first time in my life, I had chosen to help someone else, even if it meant sacrificing my plans. And somehow, that decision filled me with a strength I had never realized I possessed. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine I'd find myself here, in this desolate shed, sharing a modest bowl of oatmeal with a homeless man. But there we were, Tyler and I, sitting side by side, the rising steam from the bowl between us offering a fleeting warmth against the chill of the night. "You should eat more," Tyler urged, pushing the spoon toward me, his concern evident despite his own desperate need. "You look like you need it." I shook my head, despite the painful growl of my empty stomach. "I've already eaten," I lied, forcing a small smile. I didn't want him to feel guilty or worried. "Besides, you need it more than I do." The truth was, I was famished, the hollow ache in my belly a constant reminder of my struggle. My mother's slap still burned on my cheek, a cruel punishment for daring to take more than my allotted share. But as I watched Tyler take that first bite and saw the relief soften the harsh lines of his face, it all felt worth it. In that fleeting moment of shared humanity, the hunger, the fear, and the uncertainty faded, replaced by a profound sense of purpose. I had found the strength to help another, even when I had so little myself, and that realization made me feel more alive than I had ever felt before. "I can't make any grand promises," I told him with a resolve that surprised even me, "but I'll offer whatever help I can." The conviction in my voice was a new and unfamiliar sensation, one that made me realize, for the first time, that I was making a tangible difference, however small, in someone's life. Tyler regarded me with a blend of curiosity and admiration, his gaze piercing through the shadows. "You know, you can't save the whole world," he said softly, almost as if trying to cushion the weight of his words. Feeling a surge of inner strength, I met his gaze with unwavering determination. "Maybe I can't save the world," I said, "but I can try to make a difference where it matters." I gestured toward the dilapidated shed at the end of the street. It was far from ideal, but it was a sanctuary that my parents never ventured near. "You can stay there, just for tonight," I offered. "It's too cold out here, and I'd feel awful if you ended up freezing before morning." Tyler nodded, gratitude evident in his eyes as he followed me to the shed. As he made himself comfortable, placing the bowl on a makeshift surface, he looked at me with a wistful smile. "You've got a good heart, young lady," he said, his voice tinged with sadness. "A heart too good for this harsh world." His words struck a chord deep within me, and I couldn't help but feel the cruel irony of my circumstances. "I'm just trying to be the person my parents never were," I replied quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. The urge to flee was still a fierce impulse within me, but I couldn't bear to leave Tyler here, alone and suffering. "Take care, Tyler," I said softly, turning to leave. "If you need anything else, I'll do my best to help." As I walked away from the shed, a new resolve took root in my heart. I would stay a little longer at my parents' house, at least until Tyler was fed and strong enough to face the world. Only then would I make my escape. The next morning, as dawn began to creep over the horizon, I crept into the kitchen before my parents stirred. My hands trembled with nervous energy as I prepared breakfast, determined to make a little extra for Tyler. If I do this every day, they might not notice the difference, I murmured to myself, trying to keep my focus on the task at hand. But as I spooned the extra portion into a container, the sound of my mother's footsteps on the stairs sent a jolt of panic through me. My heart raced, but I forced myself to maintain a calm exterior, each second stretching into what felt like an eternity. "Good morning, Mom," I said, forcing a cheerful tone into my voice as I presented the breakfast. "I made a little extra for both of you today." My mother scrutinized me with a sharp, discerning gaze. "Food is expensive," she retorted, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're eating too much." Before I could react, her hand lashed out, striking my cheek with a sting that echoed through my bones. "This is to teach you not to waste," she seethed, her eyes cold and unyielding. "You won't have another bite today." The pain from her slap was nothing compared to the crushing weight of her anger. She grabbed the bowl from my hands, taking away even the small portion I had managed to secure for myself. I fought back tears, knowing that if they discovered what I was really up to, the repercussions would be far worse. As soon as the chance presented itself, I discreetly retrieved the hidden container and slipped out the back door. Each step away from the house was laden with the burden of my secret mission. My cheek throbbed from the sting, but I pressed on with determination. Tyler needed this food, and I was his only hope. When I arrived at the shed, I found Tyler still asleep, curled up tightly against the chill of the night. "Tyler, wake up," I whispered, gently shaking his shoulder. "I brought you some food." He stirred slowly, his eyes opening to reveal a mixture of astonishment and relief. "You came back," he rasped, his voice thick with fatigue. As we shared the warm oatmeal, a profound connection blossomed between us. It was a moment of pure, untainted humanity. Despite the overwhelming risks and the lurking fear, I felt an unprecedented sense of purpose, knowing I was making a genuine difference in someone's life. I never imagined myself sitting on the cold ground of a shed, sharing a modest bowl of oatmeal with a man in such dire straits. Yet here I was, observing as Tyler savored each bite, a flicker of life and hope rekindled in his eyes. His insistence that I eat half of the oatmeal before he would take a spoonful himself spoke volumes about his character. His generosity, even in the face of such adversity, touched me deeply, stirring emotions I couldn't quite articulate. "You're different from the others," Rachel, Tyler said softly, his voice filled with a poignant sincerity. "Most people just pass me by, but you have a heart that this cruel world hasn't managed to break." I offered him a sad, yet proud smile. "Maybe," I replied, "but there's still so much more to be done." I knew that this small act of kindness was only a drop in the ocean of challenges Tyler faced, but it was a beginning, a flicker of hope in a world that often seemed barren of compassion. As I made my way back home, my mind buzzed with plans to secure more food without arousing suspicion. I was resolute in not letting my parents' harshness dictate who I was or limit the difference I could make in the world. The rest of the day blurred into a monotonous cycle of mundane chores. By evening, exhaustion weighed heavily upon me. Yet when I entered my room, the sight of a covered dish on a silver tray jolted me awake. Lifting the cover, I gasped in amazement. The tray held a feast: fresh fruits, vibrant vegetables, succulent meat, and even a small dessert. It was a bounty of foods I rarely, if ever, got to taste. Was this a gesture of remorse from my mother for her earlier cruelty? I wondered, savoring each bite of the nourishing meal. The food filled me with renewed strength and vitality, a stark contrast to the weariness I had been feeling. The next morning, however, reality came crashing down with a harsh, icy grip. The biting cold was becoming relentless as winter edged ever closer. As I trudged through the frost-laden ground toward the shed, clutching Tyler's oatmeal, my breath forming visible clouds in the air, I was struck by the stark realization that Tyler needed much more than just food to survive this harsh season. When I arrived, I found Tyler huddled under his thin, inadequate blanket, shivering uncontrollably. The meager cover offered scant protection against the biting cold that seemed to seep into every crevice. "You need more than this to stay warm," I murmured, feeling a pang of helplessness, but I knew I had to act swiftly. My mind raced with thoughts of how I could provide some semblance of warmth and comfort to him. Later that afternoon, while my parents were out, I made my way to the attic, searching for forgotten clothes and blankets that might offer some reprieve. The attic was a dusty labyrinth of old belongings, but I focused on gathering anything that could offer warmth. Each item I pulled out and added to my bag heightened my anxiety. If my parents noticed these things were missing, the consequences would be dire. I carefully selected articles that had lain unused for years, hoping my absence would go unnoticed. With the heavy bag slung over my shoulder, I dashed back to the shed under the cloak of darkness. Every step felt perilous, as though I was walking a tightrope between hope and fear. I opened the shed door quietly, finding Tyler still curled up in the corner, his frame barely visible in the dim light. "I brought you something," I whispered, my voice trembling slightly as I set the bag down. Tyler's eyes widened with a mixture of surprise and gratitude as he peered inside. "Don't worry about it," I said, mustering a smile despite the pounding of my heart. The fear of being discovered loomed large, but I was determined to help. "Just use these to stay warm, okay?" Tyler reached out and took my hand, his fingers icy and trembling as they clasped mine. "Rachel, you've done so much for me. Why go through all this trouble?" His gaze, filled with intense curiosity and appreciation, made me pause. I looked down at our intertwined hands, searching for words that could convey the depth of my feelings. Because if I were in your place, I'd hope someone would offer the same kindness, I confessed, my voice thick with emotion. The fear and determination I felt were intertwined with a profound sense of empathy and purpose. "I'll never forget this, Rachel." "Never," Tyler said, his grip on my hand tightening. I nodded, feeling a surge of warmth that had nothing to do with the blankets or clothes. It was the warmth of a budding connection, a bond forged in gratitude and mutual care. At that moment, amid the cold and darkness, I felt a comforting sense of hope and solidarity that transcended the harshness of our surroundings. As I hurried back to the shed, my heart thudded with anxiety. The snow-covered ground crunched beneath my boots, each step feeling like an eternity. The chill in the air seemed to penetrate my very bones, making me shiver despite my efforts to stay warm. My mind raced with fear and determination, knowing that Tyler's situation was critical and that every moment counted. When I reached the shed, the sight inside was harrowing. Tyler lay on the makeshift bedding, his face pallid and his breaths coming in ragged gasps. His condition was far worse than I had feared. Panic surged within me, but I forced myself to remain calm as I approached him. "Tyler, stay with me," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions within. I carefully unpacked the medicine and warm blanket, trying to provide whatever comfort I could. As I administered the medicine, Tyler's eyes were glazed with fever, his strength waning. He managed a weak smile, calling me an angel and thanking me with a voice that was barely more than a whisper. His gratitude was a bittersweet balm to my frayed nerves. Tears threatened to spill from my eyes, but I fought them back, focusing on the task at hand. "You have to keep fighting, Tyler," I said, my voice cracking with raw emotion. "I'm here with you. We're going to get through this." I held his hand tightly, my own shaking with the weight of my fear. The thought of losing him was unbearable. The next hour felt like an eternity as I stayed by his side, monitoring his condition and ensuring he took the medicine. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and fears. I couldn't leave him alone, but I also knew that my absence from home would soon be discovered. My parents' suspicion was a constant threat, and the memory of narrowly avoiding disaster earlier that evening haunted me. Earlier that evening, when my parents had returned home unexpectedly, I had barely managed to slip back inside. My mother's voice had cut through the silence with a sharp edge, demanding to know where I had been. I had hidden the empty bag under a piece of furniture, scrambling to reappear, as if I had been in the kitchen all along. The accusation had come swiftly, with my father mentioning the footprints in the snow leading to the shed. "Where is that girl?" My mother's voice had been cold, cutting through the dim light of the kitchen. I had frozen, my mind racing to come up with an excuse. "I'm here, Mom," I had called out, forcing a casual tone into my voice. "Just finishing up in the kitchen." Her eyes had narrowed with suspicion. "You've been outside, haven't you?" she had demanded. I had swallowed hard, my stomach churning with dread. "No, Mom, I've been here the whole time," I had lied, trying to keep my voice steady. My mother's gaze had been steely. "Don't lie to me. Your father saw footprints in the snow leading to the shed. You know what happens to lying girls, don't you?" I had felt a chill run down my spine, but I quickly fabricated a story about checking on the tools in the shed due to a forecasted storm. My parents had exchanged skeptical glances, clearly unconvinced by my explanation. But they had left me alone for the moment, and I had returned to my room, my heart still racing from the close call. Now, with Tyler's condition worsening and my own fears mounting, I was determined to stay with him as long as possible. The thought of leaving him alone in such a dire state was unbearable. I whispered silent prayers for his recovery and for my own safety, hoping that somehow I would be able to keep him safe and provide the support he so desperately needed. As I lay there, shivering under a mountain of blankets, I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Tyler, despite his own dire condition, had braved the storm to rescue me. His act of bravery and kindness was overwhelming, and I felt a surge of guilt mixed with immense gratitude. "Tyler," I croaked, my voice barely audible through the exhaustion. "You shouldn't have risked yourself for me." He shook his head, his eyes filled with a mix of relief and concern. "You did so much for me, Rachel. I couldn't just leave you out there, not after everything you've done." I tried to sit up, but my strength was gone. My body ached with the cold and fatigue, and my vision swam in and out of focus. Tyler helped me sit up, offering me some of the soup I had brought for him. The warmth of the food and the blankets slowly began to thaw the icy grip that had taken hold of me. "You need to eat and rest," Tyler insisted. "You're the one who needs to get better now." I nodded weakly, accepting the soup with trembling hands. As I ate, the warmth of the food started to chase away the cold that had settled in my bones. The sensation was almost too much to bear, a reminder of just how close I had come to losing everything. Tyler watched me with a worried expression, his own condition clearly still fragile. "I'm sorry I couldn't get you out of here," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. "I was so focused on helping you that I didn't realize I might be putting myself in danger too." Tyler's gaze softened. "You were trying to do the right thing. You were trying to save me. And I think you succeeded. We're both still here." The simple truth of his words gave me strength, even as my eyes drooped with fatigue. Tyler's presence was a comforting balm to my weary soul, and despite the dire circumstances, I felt a deep connection between us. In the midst of all the hardship, I found solace in the bond we had forged. As the storm raged outside, I could only hope that we would both find a way to get through this ordeal. With Tyler's condition improving slightly and my own strength returning, I knew that we had to keep fighting, even if the odds seemed insurmountable. Hours later, as the first light of dawn filtered through the small cracks in the shed, I realized that our situation was still precarious. My parents' suspicion would not vanish overnight, and our resources were dwindling. But for now, the priority was to recover and devise a plan. "I'm going to get us both out of this," I promised Tyler, my resolve hardening with each passing moment. "We'll find a way. Just hang in there a little longer." Tyler gave me a faint but hopeful smile. "We'll make it, Rachel. I believe that." The storm outside continued to howl, but inside the shed, amidst the makeshift warmth and the bond of newfound friendship, a glimmer of hope flickered. For the first time in a long while, I felt that perhaps, just maybe, we might find a way out of the darkness together. I froze, my heart racing as my father's voice echoed in the chilly air. I knew I had to stay hidden, but the fear of being caught was nearly overwhelming. I darted behind a stack of old crates, my breath coming in short, panicked bursts. Listening intently, I heard my father's footsteps approaching. I held my breath, praying that he wouldn't spot me. From my hiding place, I could just make out snippets of their conversation. "We need to leave before she gets any more ideas," my father was saying. "We can't let her keep this up. It's for her own good." My mother's voice, laced with frustration, replied, "We have to make sure she understands the consequences of her actions. We can't just let her get away with this." I bit my lip, trying to stay as quiet as possible. Every second felt like an eternity, and the cold began to seep through my clothes, but I knew I couldn't risk being discovered. After what seemed like an eternity, their footsteps receded. I waited for a few more minutes, my nerves on edge, before emerging from my hiding place. The urgency of the situation drove me to move quickly. I needed to find a safe place to wait for Tyler and avoid being discovered by my parents. My mind raced as I searched for a hiding spot. The old shed where Tyler had been seemed too obvious now, so I decided to head towards the old treehouse in the backyard. It was a rickety structure, but it was secluded and provided a good vantage point to keep an eye out for Tyler. I climbed the creaky ladder with as much stealth as I could muster, each step feeling like a risky move. Once inside, I pulled the trapdoor shut and huddled in the corner, trying to make myself as small as possible. The treehouse was dusty and filled with cobwebs, but it offered a sense of security amidst the chaos. With Tyler's letter clutched tightly in my hands, I sat in the dim light filtering through the gaps in the walls. I replayed his words in my mind, drawing strength from the hope he had given me. I knew I had to stay strong and be patient. Tyler was counting on me, and I couldn't let him down. As the hours passed, the sounds of my parents' preparations for departure grew fainter. The storm outside had abated slightly, and the cold seemed less biting as I wrapped myself in an old, dusty blanket I found in the treehouse. Every sound made me jump, and I strained my ears for any sign of Tyler. I was exhausted, but I couldn't afford to sleep. If Tyler arrived and I wasn't there, I would never forgive myself. Suddenly, I heard a rustling noise below. My heart leaped with hope and dread as I peeked through a crack in the wall. I saw a figure moving through the backyard, its shape familiar. I couldn't be sure from this distance, but it looked like Tyler. I held my breath, praying that it was him and that he had found me in time. As the figure drew closer, I could see the determined set of Tyler's shoulders, and my hope grew stronger. I climbed down the ladder as quietly as possible and stepped out of the treehouse, my eyes scanning the area for him. "Tyler," I whispered urgently, my voice cracking with emotion. The figure turned towards me, and relief washed over me as I saw Tyler's familiar face. He looked worn but determined. His eyes met mine, and in that moment I knew we had both fought so hard to get to this point. "Rachel," he said softly, his voice full of warmth and reassurance. "I knew I'd find you." I rushed towards him, tears of relief streaming down my face. Tyler's presence was a balm to my weary soul. He took my hands in his, and I felt a surge of hope that we might just make it through this together. "We need to leave," Tyler said, his voice urgent but gentle. "I have a plan, but we have to be quick." I nodded, swallowing my fears and doubts. With Tyler by my side, I felt a renewed sense of determination. We were about to face the unknown together, but for the first time in a long while, I wasn't facing it alone. As we moved away from the house, my heart pounded with a mixture of anxiety and hope. This was our chance to escape the life that had suffocated us, and I was ready to take it. Together, we would find a way to start anew, far from the shadows of our past. My frustration mounted with each unsuccessful attempt to pick the lock. I felt trapped, both physically and emotionally. The thought of Tyler alone, without my support, drove me to keep trying. Every click of the hairpin against the lock seemed to echo my desperation. The room was cold and unwelcoming, its walls lined with dusty old furniture. I could hear the occasional creak of the house settling, but it was otherwise silent. I glanced out of the window, hoping to see some sign of Tyler, but the horizon remained empty. Time was slipping away, and I needed to act quickly. I focused intently on the lock, trying different angles and applying the right amount of pressure. My fingers were sore, but I refused to give up. I couldn't bear the thought of being stuck here, while Tyler was out there, depending on me. Suddenly, I heard the distant sound of a vehicle approaching. My heart leaped with hope. Could it be Tyler, coming to rescue me? I tried to ignore the pain in my fingers and redoubled my efforts with the lock. I had to be ready, no matter what. The vehicle stopped, and I heard footsteps outside my room. My parents' voices were muffled, but I recognized their worried tones. I realized they might be checking on me, and I had to work faster. Just as the footsteps grew louder, I felt a satisfying click from the lock. The hairpin had worked, and the door swung open. I quickly hid the hairpin in my pocket and moved stealthily to the window. I had to see if there was a way to escape. Outside, I could see the driveway and the distant trees. There was no sign of Tyler, but I couldn't afford to wait. I needed to get out before my parents returned. With a deep breath, I climbed out of the window and carefully descended the roof to the ground. My heart pounded in my chest as I touched down. I was free, but I had no idea where Tyler might be. My only chance was to head back to the shed, hoping he might have returned there or left a sign. I moved quickly through the trees, avoiding any signs of my parents or their car. The journey felt endless, but finally I reached the shed. I peered inside, but it was empty. My heart sank as I thought about where Tyler could be. I was about to leave when I noticed a small, handwritten note pinned to the door of the shed. I unfolded it with trembling hands. The note was from Tyler, written in a shaky but determined script. It read, "Rachel, I'm sorry I couldn't get to you in time. I've gone to find a way to get us both out of here. Please stay safe and wait for me. I'll be back as soon as I can. Trust me, we will find a way. Tyler." The message filled me with a mix of relief and worry. Tyler was still trying to find a way out, and he wanted me to stay put. I had no choice but to follow his instructions and wait. I took shelter in the shed, trying to stay warm and hidden. Hours passed, and the storm raged outside. I fought off sleep, knowing that Tyler's return might be imminent. Every sound made me jump, and I kept checking the note to reassure myself. Just as I was beginning to lose hope, I heard a familiar voice calling out in the distance. My heart skipped a beat. I recognized Tyler's voice, filled with urgency and determination. I hurried out of the shed, my eyes scanning the darkness. Rachel Tyler's voice grew closer. I saw his silhouette against the backdrop of the storm. "Tyler," I called out, rushing towards him. As he emerged from the shadows, his face was a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "I found a way," he said breathlessly. "But we need to hurry. They'll be looking for us soon." Together we navigated the storm, our path illuminated only by the occasional flash of lightning. Tyler led the way, and I followed closely, my trust in him unwavering. Despite the cold and the fear, I felt a glimmer of hope. We were fighting for our freedom and our future, and as long as we were together, I believed we could overcome anything. We fled into the night, leaving behind the house that had held me captive. With every step, the weight of our past seemed to lift, and ahead of us lay the promise of a new beginning. In the stillness of the attic, the fire's crackling was the only sound that kept me anchored to reality. The cold night wrapped around me like an icy embrace, but the small warmth from the fire was a reminder that hope was still alive. My mind drifted between fear and determination. I thought of Tyler, his unwavering kindness, his promise of a better future. I could almost see him, determined and resourceful, working to find a way back to me. That thought was a beacon of hope in my dark, fearful world. Sleep was elusive, fraught with nightmares and the heavy weight of my situation. Each time I closed my eyes, I saw my parents' harsh faces, their cruel intentions. But each time I awoke from those nightmares, I reminded myself of the fire's warmth and the promise of a new day. I would not give up. Morning light seeped through the attic's small, grimy window, casting faint streaks of daylight on the dusty floor. The fire had died to embers, but the cold had receded slightly. I knew that if I was to make my escape, it had to be soon. My parents would be busy with their morning routine, and this might be my only chance. The attic's lock was still a formidable barrier, but I had to try again. I found another piece of wire among the scattered debris and worked tirelessly to pick the lock. Each twist and turn was a battle against my rising desperation. The minutes ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity. Just as I was about to lose hope, I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Panic surged through me. I quickly stashed the wire and sat down, trying to look nonchalant. My parents' voices grew closer, and I held my breath, trying to remain hidden. The door creaked open, and I saw my mother peeking in. Her eyes swept over the room, and I could see the stern disapproval on her face. "We'll be leaving soon," she said coldly, placing a tray with some meager food on the floor. "And you'll be staying here until we're ready to go." The door closed with a sharp click, and I was left alone again. I breathed a sigh of relief and grabbed the food, though it did little to ease my hunger. I knew I had to act quickly. I took the wire, set it against the lock, and concentrated on every movement. The sound of the lock clicking open was like music to my ears. With the door finally unlocked, I slipped out of the attic, moving quietly down the stairs. Every creak of the old house seemed amplified, but I pressed on, determined to escape. As I reached the ground floor, I heard voices in the distance, my parents discussing their plans. I knew I had to be cautious. I crept through the house, avoiding the areas where I heard their voices. My heart pounded with each step. Finally, I reached the front door. It was locked, but the key was hanging on a hook nearby. My fingers shook as I grabbed the key and turned it in the lock. The door creaked open, and I stepped outside, the cool morning air hitting my face like a breath of freedom. I glanced around, seeing the familiar landscape of the countryside. There was no sign of Tyler yet, but I had to keep moving. I ran towards the trees, hoping to find a safe place where I could wait and maybe signal for help. I found a small grove of trees and hid there, keeping a lookout for any sign of Tyler. My hope was that he would somehow find me, despite everything. As the day wore on, I stayed hidden, my mind racing with thoughts of our future together and the new life we had dreamed of. Each passing hour felt like an eternity, but I clung to the belief that Tyler would come. The struggle was far from over, but as long as I had hope and determination, I knew I could face whatever came next. I pressed my face closer to the bars, my breath fogging up the window as I watched the scene unfold below. Tyler's words were a lifeline, a glimmer of hope in my darkest hour. The tension between him and my parents was palpable, and I could see the unease in their movements. Tyler's confidence and determination were a stark contrast to the fear and uncertainty I had been feeling. My father's face grew red with anger, and I could see his fists clenching at his sides. "You think you can just waltz in here and take her?" he roared. "Do you have any idea who you're dealing with?" Tyler stood his ground, unflinching. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with. I've seen enough to understand the kind of life Rachel has been forced to live. I'm not leaving without her." My mother, on the other hand, looked momentarily unsure. Her eyes darted between Tyler and the house, as if weighing her options. The possibility of legal action and police involvement seemed to genuinely worry her. The prospect of losing control over me and perhaps facing legal consequences was something she had not anticipated. As Tyler's words began to sink in, I saw my parents' resistance start to crumble. My father's anger gave way to frustration and desperation. "Fine," he spat. "If you really think you can take her, then do it. But don't expect us to make it easy." Tyler's face softened with a hint of relief, but he did not let his guard down. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady. "I'll be taking Rachel now. You'll hear from my lawyer soon." With that, Tyler turned and made his way towards the house. My heart pounded as I saw him approach the door. I wanted to shout to tell him I was here, but I remained silent, afraid of alerting my parents to my presence. As he reached the door, he knocked firmly. It was a few moments before the door creaked open and Tyler stepped inside. I could only hope that my parents would let him in without any further confrontation. I clutched the bars of the window, trying to see what was happening inside. The minutes felt like hours as I waited for some sign of what was going on. Finally, the door opened wide enough for Tyler to enter. I saw him walking towards the stairs, his face set with determination. I held my breath, hoping beyond hope that he would come for me. Then, there was a sudden commotion. My parents' voices raised in anger and disbelief. I could hear their muffled shouting and the sound of furniture being moved. Panic surged through me as I realized they might be trying to stop him or confront him in a last-ditch effort to keep me. The door to the attic creaked open, and Tyler appeared, his face a mix of concern and relief when he saw me. "Rachel," he exclaimed softly, his eyes locking onto mine with a look of deep emotion. "I'm here," I whispered back, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and hope. He rushed to me, his hands working quickly to remove the bar from the window. "We need to get out of here now," he said urgently. As the window opened, a rush of cold air hit me, and I felt a surge of adrenaline. I climbed through the window and onto the roof, with Tyler following closely behind. The chill of the morning air was refreshing, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a glimmer of hope. We moved quickly, Tyler guiding me down the roof and onto the ground. I could hear my parents' frustrated shouts in the distance, but Tyler and I didn't look back. We made our way to the car, which was parked a short distance away. As we drove away from the house, I looked out the window, seeing the house growing smaller in the distance. The weight of my past was still heavy, but with Tyler beside me, I felt a sense of liberation. "Thank you," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. "Thank you for coming for me." Tyler reached over, taking my hand gently. "You don't have to thank me," he said softly. "We're starting a new chapter now, and I'm going to make sure you're safe and happy. We'll get through this together." As we drove away, I felt a new sense of freedom and possibility. The road ahead was uncertain, but with Tyler by my side, I felt ready to face whatever came next. The relief I felt as Tyler reached my side was overwhelming, a stark contrast to the fear and desperation that had gripped me moments before. His presence was a tangible reminder that I wasn't alone, that someone cared enough to fight for my freedom. As he helped me out of the attic and down the stairs, My eyes were fixed on the chaotic scene unfolding below. The police were in control. My parents were being led away in handcuffs, their faces contorted with a mix of anger and disbelief. I watched as the house, once a symbol of my confinement, began to fade into the background of my life. Tyler led me outside, where the cool morning air felt like a refreshing embrace. The sun was rising, casting a golden light that seemed to symbolize a new beginning. As we reached his car, I could see the relief in his eyes mirrored by the determination that had driven him to find me. Once we were safely inside the car, Tyler turned to me, his face a blend of concern and support. "Are you sure you're all right? They didn't hurt you?" I nodded, though my emotions were still raw. "I'm okay, just shaken. Thank you for coming back. I thought I had lost you." He reached out and took my hand gently. "I wasn't going to leave you, not after everything. We're getting out of here, and we're going to start fresh." As we drove away from the house, I glanced back one last time. The house was now just a structure in the distance, a reminder of the pain I was leaving behind. But with Tyler by my side, I felt a sense of liberation and the promise of a new chapter. The drive was quiet, filled with a contemplative calm. Tyler glanced over occasionally, offering reassuring smiles. We headed towards a place where I could begin to heal, away from the shadows of my past. Eventually, we arrived at a small, cozy cottage, a place Tyler had prepared for us. It was simple, but it was a sanctuary from the chaos we had left behind. The warmth and serenity of the cottage contrasted sharply with the cold and isolation of the attic. Tyler's care and dedication were evident in every detail of the place. It wasn't just a new home, it was a symbol of hope and a fresh start. As we settled in, Tyler made sure I was comfortable, checking to see if I needed anything. His thoughtfulness and unwavering support gave me the strength to start facing the emotional wounds I carried. Over the next few days, I began to come to terms with the ordeal I had been through. Tyler was my constant support, helping me find a sense of normalcy and security. I realized that although the scars of my past might always remain, they would no longer define my future. Together, Tyler and I started rebuilding our lives, one step at a time. The journey was far from easy, but with each passing day, the shadows of my past grew fainter, replaced by the promise of a hopeful future. Tyler's eyes softened as he looked at me, the sincerity in his voice evident. Now, we focus on what we both need and want for our future. We take this opportunity to build a life that reflects our true selves, not just the wealth or status we have. We have the chance to create something meaningful together. I felt a wave of relief and excitement. The lavish surroundings were overwhelming, but it was Tyler's dedication and care that truly mattered. His willingness to leave behind his past and fight for our future made me realize that our journey together was more than just escaping a difficult past. It was about creating something beautiful out of our shared experiences. "We can start by taking it one step at a time," Tyler suggested. "Let's focus on what will bring us peace and happiness. Maybe we could travel, explore new interests, and even consider ways to give back to those in need." The thought of building a future with Tyler, one where we could find joy and purpose, filled me with hope. The mansion was a stunning backdrop, but it was the possibilities ahead that truly excited me. I imagined us embarking on adventures, discovering new passions, and growing closer with each passing day. "And we'll make sure that this place becomes a home for us," I said, my voice steady with newfound confidence. "A place where we can be ourselves, where we can heal and build our dreams." Tyler smiled, a mixture of relief and determination in his expression. "Exactly. We'll turn this place into a sanctuary, a symbol of everything we've overcome and everything we aspire to be." As we continued to explore the mansion, I marveled at the luxurious details while my mind was focused on our future. We discussed plans, shared our dreams, and began to envision a life filled with love and purpose. Each room, each corner of the house seemed to whisper promises of new beginnings and shared adventures. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but with Tyler by my side, I felt ready to face whatever came next. The mansion, once a symbol of overwhelming wealth, was now becoming a symbol of our new life together, a life where we could embrace our freedom, build our future, and find the peace and happiness we both so deeply desired. Our charity became more than just a beacon of hope. It evolved into a lifeline for countless individuals facing adversity. We poured our hearts into this mission, driven by the belief that everyone deserved a chance to rebuild their lives, just as we had. Our initiatives ranged from providing educational scholarships to supporting mental health services, creating safe havens for those in distress, and offering career training for those looking to start anew. As we witnessed the tangible impacts of our efforts, our own lives took on deeper meaning. Every success story, every individual who found a path to a brighter future, was a testament to the power of compassion and perseverance. The joy we found in giving back was unparalleled, filling the void that had once been occupied by fear and uncertainty. We regularly organized community events, workshops, and fundraisers to raise awareness about our cause. These events not only gathered support but also fostered a sense of unity and hope among those who participated. Our home, once a symbol of escape from captivity, became a hub of activity and inspiration. We welcomed supporters, volunteers, and beneficiaries into our lives, sharing our journey and learning from theirs. In the quieter moments of our lives, we would often retreat to our garden, where we first celebrated our love. The garden was now a flourishing paradise, filled with vibrant flowers and serene pathways. We found solace in its beauty, using it as a space for reflection and relaxation. It was in these moments that we would talk about our hopes and dreams for the future, our conversations ranging from personal aspirations to broader goals for our charity. Tyler's transformation from a man burdened by loneliness and betrayal to one of purpose and fulfillment was remarkable. He had once been driven by the need to escape his own pain, but now he was motivated by the desire to create positive change. His dedication to philanthropy became a defining aspect of his life, and he found great satisfaction in mentoring others who shared his vision of a better world. I, too, embraced my new role with enthusiasm. My academic pursuits flourished under Tyler's unwavering support. I excelled in my studies, driven by a newfound passion for learning and a desire to contribute meaningfully to society. My work was not just about personal achievement, but about using my knowledge to advance our charitable goals. We celebrated our wedding with a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by those who had supported us throughout our journey. It was a day of immense joy, marking the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. Our vows were a promise not only to each other but to the cause we had dedicated ourselves to. We danced under the stars, surrounded by friends and family who had become our extended support network. As we continued to build our life together, we faced challenges with resilience and hope. Each obstacle was met with the strength we had cultivated through our shared experiences. We knew that the road ahead would not always be smooth, but we faced it with the confidence that we could overcome anything as long as we were united. Our charity's success led to partnerships with other organizations and increased visibility in the community. We leveraged these opportunities to advocate for systemic changes, pushing for policies that would further support vulnerable populations. Our efforts were recognized, and we were invited to speak at conferences and forums about our work and the lessons we had learned. In our personal lives, we welcomed a new addition to our family, a child who brought immense joy and fulfillment to our lives. The experience of becoming parents was transformative, deepening our bond and enriching our perspective on life. We cherished every moment of parenthood, finding balance between our professional commitments and our growing family. Through it all, our love remained the cornerstone of our existence. It was a love that had been tested by adversity but had emerged stronger and more enduring. We cherished the small, everyday moments as much as the grand milestones, finding happiness in the simple joys of life together. Looking back on our journey, I marveled at how far we had come. From the darkness of captivity to the light of a fulfilling life, our story was one of resilience, love, and redemption. We had not only transformed our own lives, but had touched the lives of many others, leaving a legacy of hope and compassion. As we strolled through our garden on a warm summer evening, hand in hand, we knew that our story was far from over. We had created something beautiful and meaningful, and we were committed to continuing our mission of making the world a better place. Our love had been the catalyst for change, and with each passing day we continued to build a future filled with promise and possibility. Together we embraced the future with open hearts, ready to face whatever came our way with the strength of our love and the power of our shared purpose. And as we walked into the sunset, we knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them side by side with unwavering hope and an unbreakable bond. The years that followed were a testament to the resilience and love that Tyler and I had cultivated together. Our foundation, Light for Tomorrow, became a beacon of hope for countless individuals, providing them with the support and resources they needed to rebuild their lives. Our mission was not just about offering financial assistance, but about empowering people to transform their own futures. Our dedication to the cause kept us deeply involved in the day-to-day operations. I continued to work directly with those we aim to help, finding fulfillment in seeing their progress and triumphs. It was both humbling and inspiring to witness the impact of our efforts, and every success story fueled our commitment to our mission. Our family life flourished as well. Tyler and I, with the support of our team and community, managed to balance our professional and personal lives. Our children grew up surrounded by love and the values we held dear. We made sure they understood the importance of compassion, hard work, and giving back, instilling in them the same principles that guided us. One day, while attending a local event organized by our foundation, I was approached by a young woman whose life had been transformed by our support. Her heartfelt gratitude and story of overcoming adversity reminded me of why we started Light for Tomorrow. It was moments like these that reaffirmed our purpose and motivated us to continue our work with renewed vigor. Our home, once a sanctuary from past pain, became a hub of joy and activity. We hosted gatherings, community events, and fundraisers, using our space to foster connections and spread awareness about our cause. The garden where Tyler and I had shared so many dreams was now a vibrant gathering place for friends, family, and supporters. We often spent time there, enjoying the simple pleasures of life and celebrating our milestones. Our children, now teenagers, were becoming increasingly involved in the foundation's activities. They volunteered, participated in campaigns, and even helped organize events. Seeing them grow into compassionate and driven individuals made me proud and hopeful for the future. As we continued our journey, we faced challenges with the same courage and determination that had brought us together. The world was ever-changing, and we adapted our strategies to meet new needs and opportunities. Through it all, Tyler and I remained each other's rock, drawing strength from our partnership and shared vision. In quiet moments, we often reflected on our journey, how far we had come from the darkness of our past to the light we had created together. Our love had been the guiding force, transforming our lives and the lives of many others. We had built a legacy of hope and kindness, and it was a legacy we were committed to nurturing and expanding. As we stood together, watching the sunset from our garden, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The challenges of the past had forged a bond between us that was unbreakable. We had faced adversity with grace and emerged stronger, and our love had been the driving force behind everything we achieved. Tyler turned to me, his eyes reflecting the same determination and love that had marked our journey. "We've come so far, Rachel," he said, his voice filled with emotion. I nodded, leaning into him. And we've made a difference, Tyler. We've turned our struggles into something beautiful, and we'll keep making a difference together. As we embraced, the future seemed bright and full of promise. We knew that our journey was far from over, but we faced it with hope and confidence. The legacy of Light for Tomorrow was a testament to our love and dedication, and we were committed to continuing our work, turning every challenge into an opportunity to make the world a better place. Together we looked to the horizon, ready to embrace whatever the future held, knowing that as long as we were united, we could overcome any obstacle and continue to shine a light for those in need. As we wrap up today's story, we reflect on the incredible journey of Rachel and Tyler, two individuals who turned their darkest moments into a beacon of hope and transformation. Their story reminds us that no matter how challenging our circumstances may seem, there is always a path forward, and our greatest strength often lies in our ability to persevere and help others along the way. We hope their journey has inspired you as much as it has inspired us. Think about what you've learned from Rachel and Tyler's experience. What insights or lessons from their story can you apply to your own life? We'd love to hear from you. Please share one thing you've learned and how you plan to bring it into practice in your life in the comments below this video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment, share, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring stories and content. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful and impactful content. Thank you for watching, and remember, every challenge is an opportunity for growth and change. Together we can make a difference.